Morena Caitlin, ngā mihi ki a koe mo tō mihia i te ata. And I'm getting told to twiddle, what am I doing? Slides.
Oh, look into the camera.
And look into the camera. Morena tātou, it's a little bit of pressure here in Rotorua having to do this over our webinar or Zooey this morning, so please bear with us. We'll try and get through this painlessly this morning. So, as Caitlin has said, my name is Mapihi Raharuhi and I manage the Healthy Families Rotorua team. I've been here since 2014, born and bred in Rotorua in a beautiful place called Otara on the shores of Lake Rotoiti. So, as I said, been here since 2014, so we've had an opportunity to do some prototyping and testing around Maramataka and as a Māori Systems Return approach to wellness. So Healthy Families Rotorua is also part of a bigger Healthy Families New Zealand team called the Māori Kāhui. So several of our other sites are also members of that rōpū. And one of the things that we recognise in terms of Māori Systems Return as an approach is that we all know, particularly here in Rotorua, the dire health of our people here in Te Arawa. Māori have the highest rate of mental illness. We continually access our services here in Rotorua around mental illness. We have the highest or second highest rate of child obesity, but that's not going down. So we needed to start to think about innovative ways of addressing these chronic illnesses and creating these healthier environments. So we've held a position on Māori Systems Return as an approach here in Rotorua. And Maramataka has been one of those Māori systems that we've done some testing and prototyping in. You could also, you hear a lot now about Maramataka across the motu, which is absolutely wonderful. People are now starting to get a sense of what Maramataka can do outside of its original and traditional system. So here in Te Arawa, we held a few wānanga with the community looking for insights, some evidence to say actually Maramataka might be something to start to think about in terms of responding to meeting the health and wellbeing needs of our people. So we hooked up with a few of the experts here in Rotorua, but also across the motu. And one of the constant whakatauki is this one here. And I always say that this whakatauki connects man to atua, atua to the whenua, to the moana. It has a whakatauki that leans into that whakapapa and our connection to the environment. As a result of those wānanga, a lot of the whānau in Rotorua and across the motu said, look, we need to have something to help us step into how Maramataka works, some understanding about Maramataka, and what does it look like in the space here in Te Arawa. So as a result of partnering with Department of Conservation, Ngā Whenua Raharuhi, with our own collective here in Rotorua, Ngā Pātaka Kōrero, our Pukinga Koiki o Te Arawa and our Ngāti Piki, our Elder Council, we were able to start to work up adding some tools to our repertoire, I guess, of Maramataka. So this piece of work was actually just completed recently, but these tools have been tested along the way as we've applied Maramataka across several settings. You can actually go on site on the Ngā Pātaka Kōrero o Te Arawa website to get the full range of tools that are sitting there. And the idea is that actually these are free. These are accessible to people wherever they may be, to have a look and see where they can apply these tools in their everyday life, in their work life, places where they want to create a healthier environment. So one of the prototypes that we've been working on for quite some time is Maramataka in the school setting. Here in Te Arawa, we have Te Rangi Haka Haka, which is a science and technology school, or it's called a special character school. And we've been working alongside the tumuaki there, Renee Gillies, who has been applying the Maramataka in the school setting. So I have a video here of her talking about how they've applied Maramataka. And rather than me talking about how wonderful my team are, because they are absolutely fabulous, I like to let the community talk about their experience of applying Maramataka. So I'm going to give this a go and hopefully it will come up. You might need to turn the volume up, as Renee is a school teacher and she's wonderful with kids, but she speaks in that very low voice. So you might have to turn things up. So let's give this a go.
Mapihi, the volume's not quite working. Do you want to try and play it again and tune it up maybe?
Oh, technology, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do I do this again?
How do we make sure that your volume's tuned up as well?
Pass me your
that one.
Your mouse. Oh yeah, it's up at full volume.
So we're up at full volume
at
this stage.
Still hard to hear. Oh, there we go. It's just really quiet. Oh, it did come in, but then it didn't. Can you guys hear at your end, Mapihi? Oh, you can. Okay. Yeah. No sound. Okay.
No sound.
Arawa, hi everyone. I think do we need to share this also? Yeah.
Okay.
The volume wasn't quite working, but.
All right. I guess what I can say about this video is Renee and Anaha are the lead teachers at Rangi Haka Haka who are applying Maramataka in the everyday school setting. So planning with the teachers when they do activities according to the Maramataka, observing the behaviours and the things that children bring or the tamariki bring with them, emotionally, physically, every day, and adjusting their curriculum or activities to recognise the opportunity that Maramataka affords the school to apply Maramataka. I think it's a great way of testing whether Maramataka can work outside of the traditional approach of Maramataka, which was about, growing food, harvesting, fishing, and just that connection back to the taiao or the environment. So this is a really interesting prototype that we've been working with for quite some time. And Renee is currently also sitting alongside Healthy Families Rotorua in the Y space. So her and her tamariki, or her the children that go to her school, are also using the Maramataka in assessing water and being the hungatiaki, or creating the opportunities for kids to become hungatiaki of our Y. So aroha mai whānau for the volume. Technology. The next video, and hopefully this one will be better, is Anahira Galvin. Anahira came to our very first wānanga where we were looking for insights around actually is Maramataka a thing? You know, is this a opportunity for us to insert traditional practices back into the mental wellness of our people? And I just want to say at this stage that we have also often had some conversations with Ricky Solomon, who's done a big piece of research around Maramataka and whakamomori or suicide rates. So it's not an intervention, but I understand his research looks at when are the opportune times to insert prevention into the system. So Anahira is going to talk to us a little bit about her experience of Maramataka in the mental wellness space. I don't call it mental illness. I like to talk from a strength space, so we talk mental wellness, and Anahira talks to that. So I'm going to play this, and I hope that you can hear this one.
Can't hear it so far. Yeah.
So no sound at all?
Can't hear that.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what she's saying. Yeah.
So, yeah, Anahira basically is talking about how she came across Maramataka at the wānanga, and some of the speakers who'd been applying Maramataka across, you know, across this rohe and in the Ngāti Manawa rohe, they talked about using Maramataka to recalibrate ourselves, where we're in, the state that we're in. So Anahira, and I'm sure she'll be okay with me talking to this because she talks about it in the video, talks about you know, being in the state of depression and experiencing bipolar. When she came across Maramataka, she observed for at least 12 months the nuances, the rhythms, the ups and downs, the highs and lows of Maramataka, and recalibrated her own energy according to that Maramataka. And what she talks about is how she became a lot more, well, a lot less in that mental illness space, and became more aware of her own rhythms according to the environment. And I suppose this is where Maramataka becomes an interesting prototype in mental wellness and growing our awareness around how we are within our environment and how we can then respond to where we're at within the environment that we are in. And Maramataka allows us to be guided by that, so we can plan our day accordingly. So at the moment here in Rotorua, we are in the kore phases, or what we call the kore phases. 4 days of kore. Or I should say they are kore te whiwhia. The kore phases. What that means though is that we have 4 days of unpredictable weather. To start off, it was a beautiful day here in Rotorua, and now it's cloudy, but it's almost that time where things can happen that were unexpected. So one would start to think about, well, how do I prepare myself for the time that I'm going into? So if kore is now, I'm going to be aware that there will be things that I didn't count on, or if I'm having a hui, be prepared for all sorts of outcomes. So we use Maramataka in that sense in terms of planning. One of the things that we've also applied Maramataka in has been our Work Well planning. So Work Well is a program led by Toiti Ora Public Health around workplaces and being a lot more comfortable in your workplace or workplace wellness. So we've layered Maramataka over the top of our Work Well plan. The Work Well plan guides the activities that we do within our workplace, and also helps us to focus on things that will create that environment of wellness, with the hope that we will, be in a better position to produce more. Now, we haven't actually got the produce more part yet because we're still in testing of this, but what we can say is that staff within our environment really enjoy the talk about Maramataka and have set their planning and their days by the Maramataka. Yep. Kathy Cooney is our co-chair for our SLG, or Strategic Leadership Group, here in Healthy Families Rotorua. She's a nurse by trade and an ex-CEO of our local DHB. And this is what she's gained by using or hearing about the Maramataka as a result of being a part of Healthy Families.
Good boy.
Look, I'm coming to the end of my kōrero, but traditional knowledge doesn't just drop in our laps. We've either got to go and look for it, or we know so-and-so who knows so-and-so who knows about these things. So this slide is really an acknowledgement of all the people that have supported Healthy Families Rotorua along our journey of Maramataka. I want to really talk or say thank you really to our koike. They are libraries of research and knowledge that I think are untapped, and they've freely given their kōrero to us. So we acknowledge that and we take responsibility for taking care of that mātauranga. As a result of this, we have our what we call a community of practice, Ngā Pātaka Kōrero Te Arawa, and these are young people, these are people who are practitioners, these are people who are just stepping into Maramataka to learn about what this can do. So it is an interesting space to continue to watch. But yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the people who have helped us along the way. And really, that's my kōrero. And if there's any pātai, I have got Jay Kamita's name there, but happy to take questions if there's any questions at this stage. But also happy to take any questions if you think, a little bit further on down after these presentations that you have something that you want to ask. Happy to do that as well. So, nō reira, Caitlin, kua mutu taku kōrero.
Kia ora, Mapihi, thank you. Sorry the videos didn't quite work. Do you have the videos anywhere on your website or on your YouTube, aren't they?
Yeah, Henny can put them up.
Awesome. Henny will put them up on YouTube, and also Grace will send them out with the recording as well, the links to them too. So kia ora. Well, so I loved hearing how people have used Maramataka and their experiences of it, and also in schools and workplaces, but also that huge list of the people who have supported you and who hold that untapped knowledge. It's so nice to see everyone all out there and for you to acknowledge them as well. And that's, I think everyone will really like to probably meet with some of those people as well. So thank you. We do have one question, which is from Mike from KAD. Is there a difference in implementing Maramataka in a school setting as opposed to a workplace? He's interested in introducing it to his team, and it's quite new to him, so he's just interested in your thoughts about that.
I think the only difference will be where you're located according to your Maramataka. So if we think about where the moon is at the moment, it will be setting in different places across the motu. And so your Maramataka will be, you will recalibrate yourself to where the marama or the moon is. To influence that. But to implement it into your workplace or into your school, actually, I don't think that it is that different. All it is understanding where you are within the Maramataka where you're located, and understanding, okay, for each day or each pō, each night, that the Maramataka is moving into has its own special kōrero about, high energy or optimising the energy that night is producing. which will give you the rhythm for the daytime activities, I guess. But look, happy for Jade to hook up with Mike if he's interested to give a little bit of more kōrero. You know, as the manager, we kind of facilitate the process. Jade is really the lead on this and has a deeper understanding about how the mechanics of Maramataka. So happy for people to also contact Jade directly. Hope that answers your question, Mike.
Kia ora, Mapihi. Okay, so we will we'll actually move on to you, Jenny, if that's okay. If you want to bring up your slides and kick off. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Okay, let's try this. Stop share here.
One.
Oh, hang on, I want to see that. Okay.
Escape.
Escape.
Yep.
Escape again.
Push that minimise now. And then click onto your...
I usually, rock out in a waiata now, Caitlin. So,
to the...
while Henny and Jenny are sorting out the thing.
Click that.
Yeah.
And then share screen.
Oh, technology. Love technology.
This one? Yeah. This one.
Oh, that one, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it.
Hey.
Can you guys see
Right,
that?
well done. Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay. Is it still morning? Morena mai tātou. Ko tēnei Kaka-Scott tōku ingoa. Uri ahau no te Arawa waka, rawa ko mā tātua waka, e mihi atu nei ki a koutou i tēnei ata. So, ko hau te Lead Systems Innovator mō Healthy Families Rotorua. And my kōrero today as part of the Systems Change in Action webinar series is on a prototype that was trialled here back in 2017, now out there in the community kind of pumping, called Pai Kai Rotorua. So, whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei kōrero. Okay, and then now I've just got to find where to click. Over there, yeah. Over there, okay, hallelujah. Okay, so what is Pai Kai Rotorua? And while I do the PowerPoint, I've just thrown in a whole lot of pictures that kind of gives you a better idea visually of what Pai Kai Rotorua is. But Pai Kai Rotorua is a local community-driven social enterprise that is all about affordable, nutritious lunches for kids in our schools in Rotorua. There's the mission statement, vision statement for Pai Kai, all about nourishing the minds of our future generations. Okay. So, okay, going back in time, what was the case for change? So, because Kai is one of our areas in healthy families, the team back in 2017 had a really major mapping kind of exercise in Rotorua. At the time, there was a report released by our Chief Medical Officer about the state of obesity, childhood obesity in Rotorua, and the statistics were really, really scary. And one of the things that was scary was it wasn't just about the few, it was about the many. We had massive stats in childhood obesity, which includes malnutrition, all due to the amount of the poor diet that everybody was eating. And this was predicted to just continue and increase rapidly. So that was one of the things that was happening at the time. We had a lot of kids without Kai going to school. And that was inextricably linked with the level of whānau poverty that we have here in Rotorua. So high rates of Kai insecurity amongst our whānau. The team went out and just had a look at schools, where they were positioned in the communities and what was around them, and had a look at the school walking routes for our primary school kids and intermediate school kids, I think, at the time, and just noticed this high proliferation of junk food outlets that were all congregating around schools and on the main walking routes to schools. So that was a bit of an issue. There was huge signage that was deliberately targeting the school kids with things like pie and Coke $2 or, you know, something like this. So there were large queues of kids going into these places every morning, picking up, I guess, breakfast or lunch or whatever on their way to school, which was causing some problems. Schools alongside Whānau were struggling to help feed kids that were turning up without any kai. And then one of the other things, so then there was this proliferation of like kids can and breakfast in schools and fruit in schools. All these things started to become available, and they were much appreciated, and people started using them. And then they kind of must have hit a tipping point or something, and suddenly there was this new trend forming where kids were starting to stay back from school because of the stigma attached with being one of the whānau, one of the kids being fed at school. So suddenly the stigma was pushing kids to stay at home or causing parents to keep their kids at home, because it was really noticeable now who wasn't coming to school with some kai. So there was plenty of reasons why we should try systems disruption and create an opportunity for some community-driven social change. So that was kind of the context at the time. Let's find my mouse. Oh my God, where is that? Okay. Right, so up comes ka pai kai. What did that look like? Very humble beginnings, but that was good. Set a strong foundation. So humble beginnings in terms of finance, certainly, and infrastructure and stuff like that, but very, very committed people. So what it looked like was, originally ka pai kai was a school lunch kaupapa over in Tokoroa. Some of the team heard about it, went over, met with the whānau in Tokoroa, and they agreed that we could bring the kaupapa back here and adapt it for our community. So that happened. That happened, got it back into the office, and the team at the time worked on the prototype. So looked at the theory of change, discussed what kind of intervention this would be, in terms of prevention model, looked at the impacts that they were after, and did all the prototyping work in the office. And then Healthy Families pumped in some more human resource, some startup finance, held on to it while they established a voluntary board, and then helped set the kaupapa, which is a social enterprise, out into the community. But Healthy Families Rotorua stayed connected to the kaupapa in a very real way for quite a long time, until the board was able to kind of take over. So that happened in 2017. Became a school lunch provider, low cost to no cost. So what was quickly evident, ka pai kai kind of placed itself in our most vulnerable parts of our Rotorua community, and then quickly realised that we needed a volunteer workforce really quickly. That was highly successful. It's amazing how many people are in our community who want to give back. So we had no problems with attracting a volunteer workforce, and some of those people are actually still with us. But we found some of our schools, even if the lunch was really cheap, even if the lunch was $4 or $3.50 or something like this for this beautiful healthy lunch, parents couldn't afford it, whānau couldn't afford it. So part of the early work was establishing some sponsorship partners, and we were lucky then because tourism was pumping, and so the big sponsorship that was coming into Healthy Families at the time was coming from some of the big tourism providers. So that was really good. So that allowed us to offer to our really vulnerable schools no cost option. So at the time, everybody was a volunteer, except for we had 1 and then 1.5 paid staff, because you actually need somebody to definitely turn up into the kitchen and be the boss and run the show. So the chef was the only paid person at the time. The people making the lunches were volunteers. The board was volunteers. There kind of was no management, and talk about that later. And the drivers were all volunteers and 1 paid staff member. So we stayed like that for a good couple of years, just growing the number of schools in the community. At one stage, I think we were about 11 schools, but remembering that not everybody in the school was ordering kai. Then we shifted at the beginning of this year when the Prime Minister just out of the blue kind of announced the lunch and school scheme here at one of our schools in Rotorua, we were able to transition because we had a good kind of local reputation and some experience now after, you know, a couple of years, we were able to shift across and become now a preferred supplier to the Ministry of Health for their lunch and scheme program. However, not all the schools got the program. So we still serve both. We still have volunteers and provide low-cost kai to those schools that aren't in the program. And we also have a paid workforce now that serves the schools that are in the lunch and school program. So where we are right now is we look like a multi-site operation. So we have 3 commercial kitchens across Rotorua. And on Monday, we do our first kind of scale out to across the region. So we will open up a 7-school hub in Whakatane on Monday. So ka Pai Kai here will be the kind of mentor and help guide that operation in Whakatane. At the moment, we shot out to ka Pai Kai yesterday to the kitchen, and the executive chef for Whakatane was in there working with the team on her menu and systems and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of been the progression. So very humble beginnings, 2 shared kitchens, one of them in the local rugby club, one of them at the marae, and now a kind of multi-site operation. So that's kind of how it's worked. Okay, so I was asked to kind of comment on what worked well. Oh, pumpkin soup and brown rolls over there. So here's a list of some of the things that worked well. Attracting the volunteers and securing them into rosters worked really well. Great support from the community. I want to talk about staying true. Because I think it became very important when COVID came along. So right from the beginning, the menu for ka Pai Kai has been designed by a nutritionist, and everybody on the board is really focused on the kai, not just being any kai, but great kai, you know, kind of thing. So that is something that the board, despite ups and downs and, you know, geez, have we got enough money to pay our rent next month and all that kind of stuff, has never compromised on. The kai has always been really great. So it's free-range eggs, it's free-range chicken. None of the stuff is cheap, you know, it's quite expensive. It's always good bread. There's no white bread, there's no margarine, there's no processed ham, there's no processed cheese and stuff like that. So what's worked well is staying true to that and consistently producing really good kai, because it's meant the brand is strong, the relations that we have with critical friends, and we're talking about funders in a lot of senses, relies on the fact that we do what we say we do. Very nimble and adaptive. We've had some big kind of ups and downs during the journey, but we're able to be, you know, to stay resilient because the team is adaptive. And I must say, really, really positive board. You know, they don't give up. They're always looking to solve problems and keep the kaupapa going. Hiring a GM has been amazing, because now you've actually got someone to do management instead of the board being a bit of everything. What didn't work well? Okay, so I talked about shared kitchens. That's really difficult because you've got to lock everything away, and, you know, and because other people come in to use those kitchens. The biggie would be the rapid unplanned growth, and the board not actually being in control of the growth. A lot of the time the growth was often driven by the kitchen, you know, by volunteers and really enthusiastic people with the kaupapa who just wanted to share it everywhere. You know, you'd go to a board meeting and we'd be 2 schools, then it'd be 4, then it'd be 8, then it'd be 11. It's like, you know, what's happening? So all good to grow, but when you grow rapidly, that has huge implications on your infrastructure and finances and things like that. So those are quite hairy moments. Again, the board trying to manage operations without an actual manager was really difficult, because everybody is also got a day job, if you like, and, you know, people were running out and doing shopping in lunchtime and running it to the kitchen and all these kind of crazy things, but you got to hang in there. What didn't work? Okay, so business hibernation is connected with the COVID shock. So once COVID hit, Rotorua, being a tourist town, was, you know, really adversely affected because everything just shut down, and that's where our sponsorship was coming from, and so all that stopped. And another issue, but actually there's a good end to that story later on. The COVID shock, of course, meant that we had just signed contracts with the Ministry of Ed to become a lunch and school provider, and then COVID came. Contracts were stopped and schools closed down, so that all equals no income. So it was like, oh my gosh, because actually when we signed the contracts to upscale the infrastructure, that meant a lot of financial commitment, actually shifted to a new big kitchen and had 2 kitchens and all this kind of stuff, and then of course no income, so had to be some kind of rapid work happen there. And one of the other issues is when you're in this reactive mode, because governance is management and there is no management and all that kind of stuff, you're very reactive and there isn't time to write policy before things happen. So policy was kind of happening on the hoof as well. So those are some of the kind of challenges that happened along the way. Surviving the COVID shock. So how did that happen? Because, you know, honestly, the ink was barely dry on the contracts. Everything just scaled up, massive financial input to buy more ovens, like I say, brand new kitchen, and then it all stopped. So like I said, there were 2 kitchens, quickly merged into operations into 1 kitchen. Luckily, we were able to retain the volunteer workforce, and there was what was the government scheme? You know, the income scheme, we were at least could access that to pay for our chef and stuff like that. But a lot of our volunteers were actually quite elderly. So if you were over 70, you were, you know, told to stay home. So that kind of impacted the workforce. But luckily, more people came in to kind of lift the organisation up when it started up later on. Very good financial management by the board meant, you know, we weren't insolvent at any point or stuff like that. So just had to keep an eye on stuff. I guess the bonus from COVID was as soon as schools opened up, the government announced that the lunch and scheme school would be extended because of the rise in unemployment, and now more whānau were going to struggle. So that came in, and with a good reputation, Pai Kai was able to secure actually more schools. So when it did crank up again, you know, the operation was going to be bigger again because we'd gone down to 1 kitchen. The issue now was where we're going to do it all. And I talked about that relationship with our tourism sponsors earlier. We did a big pivot, so we're still really close. When tourism was pumping, they were really generous to Pai Kai. But of course, they're all now paused or hibernated and only relying on domestic tourism. So we had a discussion with them. Of course, they had commercial kitchens on these sites because they were, you know, kind of the hangi tourism experience with the meals. So had commercial kitchens. Everybody in there was already qualified to be working with Kai and stuff like that. And so the issue for them was that they wanted to retain their teams and their employment. The issue for us was we needed more staff and more kitchens. So we've been able to pivot together, and those now are our 2 kind of satellite kitchens, the 2 tourism operations that used to be our sponsors. So it's been really cool to be able to kind of pay that forward or back, if you like, with these businesses in town. As I was saying, so how the Whakatane hub got set up was actually the Ministry of Ed came to Pai Kai and asked if we could help, because there were no school lunch providers in Whakatane. There were no schools, so there was no traction over there. There was no one experienced to do it. And so they asked if we could help. Also, some of the schools, I think there was about 2 or 3 schools that missed out. which is really difficult for those schools if you're not a school in the scheme, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So so the board decided, yeah, we weren't happy about any children missing out on Good Kai, so Pai Kai said yes, and as I say, have mentored whakatane, and they'll be opening up on Monday. What was that point I said I was going to make? Okay, there was something in there that I was going to think about. Oh, and the last part, I'll remember it soon, is about introducing technology. And so because of lunch in schools, even though the money is really tight, we still have a lot of volunteers. That's my time, that's my alarm. Still have a lot of volunteers, so we're able to kind of stretch that $5 per meal budget. And got a young guy now in the team who's really great at technology. One of the issues with lunch and school schemes, as you might understand, is schools don't want to be, they don't want an extra job, they don't want to be handling little bits of money and all this kind of thing. So they really want a streamlined system. So for a while there, you know, we were driving around with little bags of coins and all this kind of thing. It's really, it's not ideal and it's not sustainable. So now for those parents who are in the schools without the scheme, they can order the lunch online, pay for it online. So that's kind of become a, you know, moneyless or cashless kind of a system. And also you can go onto the website now, and if you want to be a sponsor, you can do that all online. So that's a bit of the technology that's happening post-COVID. So actually COVID ended up being, although it was a what are we going to do moment, it's kind of worked out okay. I just wanted to do a mihi at this stage to our volunteers. That's a bit of kōrero from one of the board members when I said to her, you know, what about these volunteers? And this is her kōrero over here, the heart and backbone of the kaupapa. Yeah, so I just wanted to do a mihi out to our volunteers who just do an amazing job. It's not an easy job making all these lunches and then delivering them to schools. Some of our schools are, you know, over 20 k's away and stuff like that, but they do it on their own vehicles. Our volunteer drivers use their own vehicles and petrol to deliver these lunches all over the place. Okay, so if we're talking about impacts, on Monday, we will make just over 4,000 lunches a day between our site here, the Rotorua site, and Whakatane. So in the beginning, I think we started with 80 lunches a day, went to 100, and then before the lunch and school scheme, we were sitting around about 350 lunches a day. Lunch and school scheme has changed everything because the contract is for every child in that school. So now we've increased food security just over 4,000, children a day. Pathways to employment, when we got the contracts to deliver lunches in school, that created work, and the first people that got offered the work, of course, were our volunteers, and many of them took that up because they had the qualifications now to work in the kitchen safely. And so there's been some pathways to employment that have been created. As I say, we've got 3 commercial kitchens operating. There's a skilled volunteer workforce now with the food safety, handling qualifications and stuff like that. Yep, preferred supplier for the ministry. And if we think back to when kids had to walk to school past all that junk food and all those cheap food kind of options, what's happened is we've made the healthy choice the easy choice by being able to just, you know, kids know that kai is waiting for them at school. Okay, more veggies and kids, we could definitely say that. Take some kids a while, you know, they're not fooled that butter chicken sauce doesn't have a pumpkin in there somewhere, but you know, you can always opt out of veggies, of course, but then you'll be buying your own lunch. But they get used to it. They get used to it, and now they love it. So that sauce there on those meatballs has got all sorts of veggies kind of disguised in there. Some of our teachers have reported kids are far happier and more focused for learning, calmer in the afternoon because they're no longer hungry and their puku is full and they feel good. Some of our parents have reported, you know, when they've seen the lunches and what the kids are eating and that the kids like it and will eat it, have started to learn how to do better meals and copy some of the meals, which is really great. We've talked about the Whakatane Hub, and the other thing we really try to do is source local kai and support our own businesses and use really good, you know, there's no plastic containers going out or stuff like that. It's a bit more expensive to buy environmentally friendly containers, but it's worth it. Okay, Grace asked me to throw in some insights in learning, or our greatest insights in learning, and I've picked 3. So, yeah, plan for change and be prepared to adapt when all that doesn't work out. Pai Kai had just done a massive strategic plan, worked out, paid somebody to help with the workforce plan to ensure operations were going to be efficient and effective. And everybody was feeling great, and then COVID happened, and that will just be like, so okay, you know, we plan for change, but in the end, we have to adapt when all that doesn't work out. My advice would be just don't give up, you know, don't give up, just keep going, adapt and pivot, move on. The other thing that we've learned is the massive support from the community for authentic initiatives. And so the key to all of that is walking the talk. If we say we're going to do Nourishing Kai, we have to stick with Nourishing Kai. Even when we looked at $5 and thought, wow, can we do it? I don't know. You know, we had to work out a way to do it. So the community will stick with you through thick and thin if you walk the talk. And then the other thing that we've definitely learned when we think back to the case for change is that the answers to the most complex problems lie within communities themselves. Taking a systems approach works. Okay, so we've intervened in a lot of places. We've definitely increased Kai security for a lot of kids. And so our role is to strengthen our communities, enable our communities to transform themselves. So I'm sorry that that's really quick and just kind of flicked through that, but koe nā taku kōrero mō tēnei rā. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou, kōrua Caitlin, kōrua ko Grace, ngā mihi kia kōrua koutou o Healthy Families Waitakere, koe nā taku kōrero.
Kia ora ngā mihi, Jenny, thank you. Wow, what an awesome, such, you know, really humble, true, real learnings that you've just shared with us. And that food's making you really hungry. It looks beautiful. But you've talked about everyone's roles, you know, the Healthy Families role, the role of sponsors, your volunteers, and it's just so beautiful to hear that some of them are still with you today, so many years on, and that you're mentoring a team in Whakatane as well. That's, yeah, it just, you know, that's amazing.
It sounds really good, sounds really generous, but I must say, to be honest, when I heard it, when the ministry's, you know, we got the message that the ministry has asked if we want to help, I was like, no, only because I barely got out of COVID, you know, which way is up kind of thing. And then it's all that authentic stuff. No, we said we were going to make sure that no kid misses out. So, yeah, the vision drove that. But I must say, initially I went, oh, really? You know, like, yeah. But actually, it's worked out. The staff is amazing. Had a big pōhiri. The kitchen is going to be in Te Whare Wānanga o Awanuiarangi. They've got a commercial kitchen in there, and that they've offered their kitchen, and they did a big pōhiri for the team last week. So yeah,
beautiful.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. But at the end of the day, you know, these beautiful children will be eating nourishing, healthy kai. So yeah, that's what it's all about. We haven't had any questions actually, but we've got lots of comments on here, and you know, lots of positive comments. There was just a bit of confirmation around when you were talking about schools that were missing out.
Oh, that was it. Yeah. So that was that point. Yeah. So in Rotorua and in Whakatane, not all the schools have been included. Some are considered higher decile schools and stuff like that, but they've come back and said, well, that might have been an old kind of listing or rating, but no, we've got plenty of families that struggle. What we know here, there has been a little bit of movement from families if their kids are in a school that aren't on the lunch and school scheme. So I have heard that a couple of whānau have shifted schools. Will shift their schools to a school that's in the lunch and school scheme, especially if they've got a couple, 2, 3, 4 kids. You can imagine the saving. So it's quite difficult for schools that haven't been included in the scheme. they do, you know, there is a risk there that families will move their kids because they just need that extra support. So that's what I was thinking when I was talking about whakatane, because there were some schools that there were only a few, there was 2 or 3 or, you know, schools of all the schools here that missed out, and they were just feeling really left out and a little bit pouty for the tamariki and whānau in their schools because they weren't included.
That's wow, and it shows that the insecurity is there, isn't it? And if you have to shift your child so that they can be fed, wow.
Because the feedback was, the feedback was, you know, we might have to change the uniform, but that's a one-off cost. But the school lunch, you know, the school lunch program is lunch every day. So if I've got 3 kids, that's lunch every day for my kids for the whole year. And, you know, hopefully it's successful and it will carry on because there is so much need. But that cost, the cost of a uniform put beside that is parents have thought, no, we'll buy a new uniform.
We also just have some confirmation here from Gillian Bartlam, just saying that the schools in the first phase are years 1 to 8. And that some schools actually didn't want to take on the program as well. So there might have been some schools like that as well.
And that's interesting. Some of our schools are kura kaupapa, and they include the wharekura, so they include the high school kids. So if we're serving them, then we've committed to serving the whole school, even though it's only going up to kind of year 8, because we did not want to send lunches for some kids and then these ones we're missing out. So we carry the cost of that. That's more running around trying to fundraise.
We've got a comment here about you're courageous. So really courageous, all of your work. And also some comments about how it started in Tokorua and then it's gone to Rotorua and then on to whakatane as well. We do have a question here that's come through from Pippa McKelvey Sibir Lau. Aroha mai for my pronunciation, Pippa. Kia ora, Jenny. Thank you for the inspiring presentation. You started with the rationale of Rotorua's obesity and dental health stats that were the motivator for starting this kaupapa. Have you been able to do any evaluation of this yet to see if these changes are occurring?
Yeah, we've done, kia ora, thank you for that Pātai. So we had a student in here, research student in here. They've done a little bit of work for us. We haven't, we haven't done enough, and we would need to do some more, but we're constantly in touch with the board of Pai Kai, getting their feedback. The research student that we had did research in the schools. That's how we know about what school teachers think, and that's how we know about parents saying that they wanted to improve their own meals because they saw. So we've had a little bit of touch base that way, but now that we've got a GM, it's like a godsend. So then it's what I was saying before about the board can now get in a position, and healthy families alongside them, to do some of this broader evaluation kind of stuff. So we've been wanting to do that, but the team at Pai Kai have kind of been running, but they're now very interested, now that the board is there themselves, on gathering this exact information as well. So the Pai Kai wants to know, and we certainly want to know if there's been any shifts there. I guess the shifts are going to take a lot longer to materialise. And obviously, we're only impacting 1 meal a day. We do know that for some of the tamariki, that's it for the meal. That's it for the meal. Or if they're having breakfast in school, that's 2 meals kind of thing. So we do know that. But Mum.
I think when the team worked up Pai Kai in the very early stages, I think we talked about possibly seeing some significant impact, 5 years, 10 years down the track of Ka Pai Kai becoming a social enterprise. But actually what I've observed, and I'm not sure whether Jasmine Jackson's on, who can probably talk to this a lot better, but we've actually seen the impact in a shorter time. So I think 4 years has been, or 3 years has been the lifespan so far of Ka Pai Kai, and it's just grown exponentially over the last 3 years. So I think our trajectory of 5 and 10 has become really shorter. So we're seeing some impact across the community. But Pippa, you're right, we do need to evaluate this initiative alongside the board to see, to get some real evidence that social enterprises like this, the methodology, the approaches actually do work for, our most vulnerable community members, which are our tamariki and mokopuna. So it is ongoing work.
Yeah, kia ora, Mapihi. We do have a comment here that from Megan B that Imaui are evaluating the program along the way to the school, the healthy school lunch program, of course. And also regarding some of the case for change, like whakama and signage, is there evaluation evidence that these have been overturned? There's an awesome report that children are happier, and or it's awesome to report that children are happier and settled. But,
anecdotally, yes. So I do know in several of the schools that we're in, because of the relationships that we have with the schools, that the roles increased. So there was a certain group that started to become absent. Most of them have gone back to school.
Oh, beautiful. Sorry, that question was from Dwayne Mann. Kia ora, Dwayne. Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah, is Jasmine on there, Caitlin? Jasmine Jackson?
I can't quite see. Grace, can you see Jasmine on here?
Okay. Jasmine Jackson is the chairperson of Ka Pai Kai, and she was going to try and jump on if she had some time. Yeah.
Doesn't look like she is, but I think we're pretty good for time. So thank you, Jenny, Mapihi, big mihi to you all, and for sharing your mahi, and big mihi to all of your supporters and stakeholders who are involved in those both of those pieces of work as well in the kaupapa. It's awesome and beautiful to hear what's going on in Rotorua. So thank you
for listening.
Again.
For tuning out.
Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa motu tautoko. Thank you to everyone who has participated and listened, and for your comments today as well. I'll just close us with a karakia.
Kia ora.
Kia tātou katoa, te atawhai tō tātou ariki, a iukarai te me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake. Amen.
Amen.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Kia ora
Ngā manaakitanga, ka kite. Kia ora, everyone.